This is my randomology, and today things are going to get very, very, very awkward. So the lessons so far have been on just how to read or how to approach literature, how to approach different kinds of art, genre, things of that sort. But I think we need to take a step back, and I want to do a lesson on how to actually create your own stuff. Now, some of the lessons that I have coming up have to do a lot with science fiction and fantasy, obviously, but one thing that I was reminded of is that we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of what could possibly be one of the worst episodes in television history. And that is the Great British Baking Show's Mexican Week episode. I heard about this when it happened. I haven't actually seen it, but it's apparently an intensely culturally insensitive and ignorant display of what can happen when you try to use elements of a culture that is not your own in your own work. Now, we're gonna watch this, and I'm gonna react to it. Now, if you're watching the free version, you're only gonna get a couple of pieces, I guess the most important ones. But if you are a member, and you can become a member by clicking the little button down there, or going to Patreon and becoming a supporter there, you actually get the full reaction in this video. But I'm going to use this as kind of a springboard to talk about how to use other cultures that are not your own in your own work. Now, it's doable, it's possible, there's a way to do it which is respectful and which is just good. And from what I understand, this is a great example of everything not to do. So we're going to go ahead and watch this and then use it as a springboard for the discussion and the lesson. So let's go. The Great British Baking Show's Mexico Week. I did hear this was really bad. Like, bad. So let's see.
Hello, Noel.
Oh,
Are you
good
excited
God.
for Mexican Week?
Yeah, I remember seeing this part, this
I'm
picture.
absolutely
Not even Juan.
not even Juan.
Welcome to the Great British Baking Show.
Do they even know what they're wearing? Do they even understand?
And try to pull off a dairy-rich extravaganza in a mucho challenging showstopper.
Muy challenging. The proper. Oh my! That's just Spanish. I know there's Spanish in Europe. I know that. The word there would be muy. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I don't really know much about Mexican cuisine, so this is an absolute adventure.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just say this right now. Fajitas. Okay. Okay, look, I'm gonna go easy on the cooks themselves. What? Anyway, what I was saying was that I'm gonna go a little bit easier on the cooks because they're getting thrown into this, and I don't expect everybody in the world to have a knowledge of Mexico or Mexican cuisine. That's just it's ignorance. You don't know.
Dulce,
I'm gonna say
is the collective term for a whole array of Mexican sweet treats.
well, they got that right. Anyway, let's see.
Identical tasty buns.
Which is also Paul's nickname.
You have 2.5 hours.
On your mark.
Okay, so pan dulce. I love pan dulce. I love conchas, cuernitos, the whole thing. Let's see.
It means sweet bread. It's not cake, it's not a bread. I've never had them.
What do you mean it's not a bread?
There are dozens and dozens of varieties of this, and they change from region to region.
True. Yeah, that's actually something that most people who are not really familiar with Mexican food may not know. When you say Mexican food, you're actually encompassing dozens upon dozens of different styles, like tacos. Those change from region to region. Pan dulce as well. Mole, which is a very traditional dish. There are so many varieties, and they are very, very different depending on where you're from. Tamales too. So they're getting at least that right. They're acknowledging that there's a lot of different varieties of this stuff. Now, myself, I grew up in Guanajuato, so that's the region of food where that I grew up on. So just kind of throwing it out there.
Tell us about your pan dulce.
So I've decided to...
Okay, the pronunciation's kind of whack, but whatever. She tried.
Noosh is making one of the most popular of pan dulces.
Conchas! That's
Known
my
as concha
jam!
in topping.
Lime crackling.
His coconut
Okay.
flavored bread will be contrasted.
Okay, you lost me on the coconut. I actually don't like coconut.
using plain flour
But that's a
for this one
personal
because they were more
thing.
cakey,
So
which I-
anyway, I was gonna say my mother-in-law, may she rest in peace, always used to bring me conchas when they visited. I love them, but they do bring back kind of a bittersweet memory remembering her.
Might need tequila just to get through this show. Slam a couple of those down. Me and Prue do, yeah.
Oh, well, that may explain some of the stuff that's about to happen.
A vital component of
Corn on the
Mexican
cob
cuisine,
conchas. Oh!
Shabira's conchas will have a corn and coconut custard filling.
Why do they keep using coconut? I mean, not that coconut isn't used in certain parts of the country, but...
And I'd be like, why are you so obsessed with me?
I think it helps to make it a bit more like a cake than a bread.
But you're not making a cake, you're making a bread. Pan dulce is not... It is very much not cake.
Cinnamon and coffee concha buns will have a chocolate and coffee crunchy top. And here
All right, it's definitely more artisanal. It's definitely more creative. I'm not going to fault him on that. This guy's at least getting some of the flavors right. Like those are very traditional flavors.
I have to knead this by hand now. I feel like it could have a bit more liquid. Feels a bit too.
Yeah, pan dulce is definitely not cake. It stretches. It's got a little bit more gluten in it.
Good, lovely and stretchy.
About 25 minutes at home.
Yeah, the bread can't be. It's not really crumbly, right? It's a very unique kind of bread.
And having some hazelnuts for crunch.
Nuts?
Sandro's salted caramel and coffee conchas will have a prey. Finished off with a caramel and hazelnut base.
The idea is to do...
You know what? He's being creative with it. I won't fault him on that, But I don't think I've ever seen that in a concha.
Rebs plans vanilla concha buns topped with lemon
Okay.
coconut and served with whipped cream lemon curd on the side.
I think I had a lemon concha maybe like once. It's interesting.
Amazing about Mexico, magical. I want to go to the Mexican Day of the Dead festival.
Always fun. Always
One
fun.
place-
with her pan dulces, Carol's embracing Mexican
Oh,
flavors.
she's actually using a molcajete. Yes.
In Mexican, anise and orange to pan.
You're making what, sorry?
Pan de Denise.
Denise, is that?
Denise. Denise is my sister-in-law.
Anise, pan dulces. A
Pan
light,
de
fluffy
anise.
Chelsea
Okay.
bun style
Anise is used in a lot of sweetbreads. Okay.
Oh, it's just anise de pan.
Pan de anise. It's the other way around. It's the other way around. I'm not gonna fault her for not getting the Spanish right if it's not something that she usually speaks.
Mela.
Snap Mela. What?
Bella naranja.
Bella. Okay. All right. All right.
Bella Naranja conchas
Okay.
will be packed with orange and cinnamon flavor, have a crispy topping, and be
Okay.
served with
Okay. Interesting. It's different.
I'm doing conchas, and they're conchas with a kick.
Dawn's
just with a
classic
kick.
Mexican combo of chocolate and chili flavored
Ooh,
concha.
dark chocolate and chili. That's not just traditional. That is like old school Mayan flavor. So
We will use the old ways.
there's a traditional drink which is hot chocolate with chili in it, actually, and the sweetness and the spicy. I've actually had it a couple of times. It's really, really good.
For those making conchas, shaping is key.
Yeah. It's gotta be like a little think of like a hamburger bun kind of thing. That's the kind of shape you're going for.
I'm putting the sweet corn in to just give like the celebration of Mexican flavor.
Corn,
does the
very
trademark
very
concha
traditional.
topping.
By the way, this might be a video at some other point, but just really quick, if anybody out there is wondering about the difference between Tex-Mex and Mexican cooking, there's a couple of differences. One of them is actually the type of tortilla that you use. Tex-Mex tends to use more flour tortillas, whereas Mexican cuisine tends to use more corn tortillas. Now, as you move north in Mexico, some of the northern states, the northern styles, switch a lot more into flour tortillas. Now, that makes sense as to why Tex-Mex would use more flour, because Tex-Mex is on the southern border of the U.S., and as you move north in Mexico, they use more flour. So it's little things like that. Like in most of Mexico, traditionally, you'll find primarily chicken and pork, but as you move up north, you find a lot more beef in the cuisine, and in Tex-Mex, you use a lot more beef than chicken or pork. So anyway, that might be a video for another time, but just to kind of throw that out there.
I'm cutting my cookie crust that goes on top.
Around the dough.
A little bit, yeah. Now the tricky thing with the topping is that it has to be thin enough to not really like be a cookie, but yeah.
These should sort of pop apart and you get like a grid effect.
Yeah, when they bake, the little cookie part there is actually going to crack apart, so you're going to get these little this little grid pattern with the topping.
These are just little fondant daisies. Very springtime vibes.
We're proving time up.
Springtime, I think Guadalajara, the city of eternal spring, it's called because the weather's so temperate.
I think I might be Mexican in my soul.
The fuck you are.
Really? Really? Put those down.
I'll give
Is up.
Okay,
They're done.
not exactly the shape I'm used to, but if the flavor's there,
The pattern I wish
okay,
was
that
more
is a lot closer to like a traditional concha. Those look good. That actually looks really good. I like the way that looks.
What?
That's not long enough.
Those actually that one looks good. That one looks pretty good. Okay.
I'm happy with the bread, to be fair, but they look shocking.
Shocking? That is That is shocking to you? How British are you? You gotta put the covering a lot more on the concha. Like it's gotta go from pretty much the edge all the way to the top everywhere.
A little bit more open, and that's because you use plain flour.
Yeah, there's a lot of like air bubbles in a lot of pan dulce actually. It's not a dense bread. Well, some of them are, but a lot of them have a lot of air bubbles inside. I'm curious about lemon conchas.
The overall look awful. Crackland's not good. Looks like you sat on them.
Oh,
What a bitch.
Oh, Dick, come on.
The roll is okay. It needed a bit more of a dome on it. The color looks.
What do you mean a bit more of a dome? This is the first one that actually looks like a concha. Those look pretty. Corn on the cob conchas. All right. Vega naranja. This is the other one that I was actually kind of curious about. See, that's a good crackling on top.
Size, they could have done with a little bit more of a dome. You've got some, so you've got a bit of height there.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
No, that's a pretty good concha. I don't know, what are you talking about?
Size-wise, I think they're okay. I'd like to see more of a dome. You've lost that.
Okay, now the size-wise thing, I'm getting kind of pissed at him about because conchas, like, there's little ones, there's big ones. Like, there's some that'll fit on a dinner plate that I've seen, and my mother-in-law brought me one or two of those on occasion. So they come in all sizes, man.
They do look like little drunk fellas.
Have you ever seen a drunk?
Yeah, it went pretty well. Almost got a handshake. Stingy git.
You know what? I'll give them props.
While the
They
bakers
tried to do
practice
something
their
creative with
signatures,
it,
they
and
haven't
for the
a
most
clue
part,
what
they
they'll
looked
be
like
asked
they
to
were
make.
actually,
And today,
trying to capture the flavors of what they understood Mexico to be. So I'm not going to fault them for that.
Paul would like you to make 8 Mexican tacos.
Ooh.
Your tacos should be made from yellow field corn and then
Traditional?
hand pressed.
All right, but they have to make their own tortillas. This is interesting. I've never made tortillas by hand, but I've seen my wife make them and my mother-in-law make them, and it is an endeavor. Okay, so
Got a bit
okay.
of callo, which is basically a salsa. Like
Gallo.
Then you have the steak and then a little bit of cheese. And
Queso
also
fresco.
refried beans. The two
Okay,
pickled too thin,
that
and then
you're using the
actual steak
tortilla
on the
kind of
pan.
like
So
a
you only need
plate.
less than a minute. And when you try and roll it up into a taco,
Okay,
it will
you're
crack.
supposed to be able
It's
to
got
roll
be
that
pliable.
up. That seems like a lot.
See, through. Choose your taco.
That still looks like it's too much.
For each of the elements, it just says make the pico de gallo, make the refried beans, make the guacamole. It's
What?
quite scant.
If you don't know what these things are, how do you just make that the instructions?
Nice steaks.
Would you eat?
Yeah, like I said earlier, steak beef is actually more of a northern style.
Like a mad professor, I am flinging things into a bowl with gay abandon.
I mean, if you're gonna have abandon, might as well do it like that, right?
Because burning me knife. Well, it's meant to be hot anyway. It's meant to be Mexican, isn't it?
Beef.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I like her. She's cute.
So very big white onion.
Yep.
De-seed.
Onion, cilantro, tomato, squeeze a lime, little bit of salt, you're done. That's it. This is supposed to be something that you can just scoop up, put on top of something.
Hey, Noel, do you want to hear my Mexican accent?
Yes, please.
Oh no, God,
All right,
no.
here we go. Arriba! You are halfway through.
What's going on? What's happening? What's that?
Oh my God.
So to make the refried beans, the instructions said make the refried beans.
Pro tip for anybody out there that wants to try out a Mexican restaurant, or this might actually even work in a Tex-Mex restaurant. If the beans are not good, whether they're refried beans or frijoles borrachos or whatever the case may be, beans. If the beans are not good, nothing else is going to be good. I promise you that. If they don't get that right, leave.
I make kidney beans at home with coconut milk.
No.
The same method without coconut.
Okay, good.
Powder, salt, black beans. Let's go half. Don't go more.
Well, I mean, they're refried because you cook them and then you kind of like fry them on the stovetop.
We'll let that thicken a bit.
Ooh, too much onion.
I have honestly never made this. Never.
Way too much onion.
How many avocados do we put in there? Oh, God.
Red onion.
No.
Jalapeno.
No. No. Okay, look, if you're ever going to work with an avocado, please, just listen to me, please. You cut the avocado along the long end, down the middle. Don't cut the seed inside. Just kind of put the knife around it. Separate, and then with a spoon, just scoop it out. You don't have to peel the avocado.
I think that's what refried beans looks like.
You are wrong.
It's the right amount of chili, in my opinion.
It tastes
They
okay.
don't. Refried beans don't typically have chili in them. I mean, they're typically mixed with other things, like you put it on a tortilla and put other stuff on it. I mean, obviously they have seasoning, but not really chili.
Tortilla press.
I know she doesn't really know Spanish, but her pronouncing tortilla like tortilla is really grating on me.
This is the hardest part. You don't know how thick or how thin it should be.
I mean, that is true. I mean, this is the easiest part of the tortilla making process to screw up, like getting the thickness right.
Tortillas, traditionally, I think are meant to be cooked on a hot stone. You're just gonna go
On a hot stone? What?
Some puffing.
Yeah, you cook them really quickly, otherwise it turns into tostadas.
They started cracking. That's a problem.
Oh, that's a big problem.
Bit of stick.
And then the fried beans.
Just don't know how much of it.
Well, usually the beans are a base. You put that on the bottom. It's kind of like, I mean, you use it like a condiment, really.
Where to put the guacamole?
Salsa? My pico de gallo.
Ugh.
Bakers, you have 1 minute.
Oh, pico de gallo, by the way, you can add some chopped jalapenos in there, with or without seeds. That's optional.
I wish that we'd had like quantities.
Oh, no, honey, that's too much.
There's a bit of colour on this. There's no need for colour. There is a bit of dark.
What do you mean there's no... No.
Gentlemen, what brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
A little bit thick as well, actually. They're very small.
They're street tacos that are that size.
These look quite pale, don't they? Almost underdone.
It's also got too much filling, I think.
I think there is.
What do you mean too pale? Like,
Again,
what is the criteria that they're using here?
that's ridiculously thick.
No. All tortillas are beautiful, man.
Would like you to create your own take on the popular tres leche cake. Now,
Tres leches? I've never had to make a tres leches cake. I'm a big fan of tres leches. Whew.
Favorite thing about it is that it's full of moisture.
By moisture, you mean milk.
It's a fiesta kind of cake.
What does that mean?
A big moustache in the middle, and at the bottom, going around, we'll have iced biscuits.
I'm sorry, a what?
With Irish cream soak and a spiced chocolate sponge with coffee and cherry brandies.
What kind of flavor are you going? What?
Like 4 teaspoons of chili flakes. So.
Interesting.
What the fuck?
I'm making a chocolate tres leche cake filled with strawberries and cream. And the
Okay,
outside
strawberries
is
and cream.
Is Italian meringue buttercream and cinnamon vanilla cream.
Okay, cinnamon and vanilla. All right.
Team is Day of the Dead.
Oh.
So I'm making white chocolate skulls.
Nice.
Passion fruit and coconut tres leches have lime curd filling, and be adorned with white chocolate sugar.
Okay, not a fan of the coconut, but otherwise that actually sounds really good. I mean,
I am making sweet corn sponge.
Sweet corn.
Filled with creamed corn and cinnamon-flavoured cream cheese icing.
I mean, she's definitely trying to embrace the flavors, so if she pulls it off, maybe?
So I am doing a tiramisu tres leches wedding cake.
Tiramisu.
So it's a wedding
Okay.
All about marketing, you see, branding. If I say it's a wedding cake, then I'm allowed to be more simple.
I don't think that's how that works.
Whipping cream, evaporated milk, coconut.
I'm using
Coconut milk is not real. Oh,
cream,
God.
To be talking on it, but I don't want them to say, oh, you know, can't really get the chili.
Some bird's eye chilies.
Oh. Hey, if you've never really tried chilies, here's a good rule of thumb. The smaller the chili, the spicier it is, okay?
Going all out, James's lemon and lime sponges will have a vanilla tres leches soak, dulce de leche lime curd, and creme diplomat filling.
Why did you pronounce it dulce? Dulce.
Gonna fix the tops of them and get some lovely milk into them.
To ensure each bite is decadently moist, needs liberal soaking.
Yeah, no, you got those things. You have to cut into them, and it should just like juice up. Like, think of like a rare or a medium rare steak. Like when you cut it, and like the juice comes out. That's what this cake should do with milk. And I've never made one, but from what I've seen, you gotta balance it out because if it's too soaked, it'll fall apart. Like you gotta hit that sweet spot.
It's overrated being dead, I'll tell you that much. I've been dead for 13 years now. Paul has to break me out of the cemetery before every show. Clothes on me.
What the fuck?
So let me get this straight. Mexico is a real place. Yeah. How would one get there?
Oh, it's easy. You just go like this.
I'm not sure what the point of that joke was.
I doubt this is how the Aztecs originally built it. I think a lot more engineering would have gone into it.
Significantly more.
It didn't soak well.
No aliens were involved either.
Just got to get the cream on, and then I'll tidy it up.
It's a mess.
That's what she said.
That sounds like a Friday night, right?
It's holding up well, but it's a mess.
This is not.
Oh, welcome to the life of a writer, right? The hell are you doing?
Prue.
What is that? What the hell is that?
I have a few issues with this.
It is a bit untidy, but let's see what it tastes like.
It looks like a clown. Like it looks like if you took a clown and baked it.
I love the idea. Icing is a little rough and ready.
It's a little rough. I don't care, man. The guy tried to make an Aztec pyramid out of cake. God, my D&D brain, I thought those were dice. I don't know about this one. Just the big mustache and
I absolutely.
It looks like the fabric on a bus seat.
I mean, they asked for Mexican, and I feel like it was more of a Mexican.
Oh. All right, that was funny. I mean, it's an old joke. But it was funny coming out of his mouth. You know what? To be fair, they were given some pretty difficult things to do. So, and I'm going to say this again. I'm not ragging on the cooks too much on this episode. Who I am going to rag on is the people who wrote some of the gags and the dialogue and who wrote some of these instructions. Because, again, if you don't know what some of these dishes are, I mean, I guess it's kind of the point as well. Like, okay, if I tell you mix these ingredients and make, guacamole, you should be able to, with your knowledge of flavor and spices and things, what do you think is the proper ratio?
One way this is going to go, and it's like harder and harder.
Sounds like a fun night. Okay, let's actually discuss what we learned from that. Like I said, and I kept repeating it over the course of the episode, I'm not going to blame the cooks themselves for a lot of the stuff that was going on there because they're not familiar with this kind of cooking. Obviously, there's a couple of things. There's more than one place where I was looking at them and I was thinking, like, what are you doing? That's not how it's done. But they really wouldn't know that that's how it's done. It's a question of ignorance, honestly. And I'm using that word, and a lot of people might take offense to it, but ignorance just means you don't know. Like, if you had taken these cooks and sat them down for even like a 2-hour crash course on Mexican cooking and Mexican food and Mexican history and culture and things like that, even that would have given them, I think, a bigger base to create their stuff. So I'm not gonna rag on them too much. I mean, even though some of the stuff is kind of funny, like seeing them trying to do some of this stuff and react to it, but that's a surface level reaction. What I think the episode really failed on was where some of the jokes and some of the stuff and some of the presentation on the show's part itself happened. For example, the tacos that they were supposed to make were beef, guacamole, refried beans, and all these different things. Now, that particular type of... I'm going to be very, very specific here. I don't doubt that there's places that serve tacos like that in Mexico. But they're probably further up north because, like I said in the reaction, and I may have cut it out if you're watching the free version, beef is primarily used in the northern parts of Mexico. Primarily what you find in most of the country is pork and chicken. So these were very much northern style. And they used spicy refried beans, which I haven't really seen. Refried beans are typically used more as a condiment, especially when you're talking about tacos. You put them on the tortilla and then you put other stuff on there, and the refried beans kind of help hold everything in. So it's of dubious authenticity. Let's put it that way. It's of dubious authenticity. That opening scene too. Now, given all of that, what can this tell us about how to use a culture that you're not familiar with? The most obvious thing is just please do your research. Talk to somebody who actually is part of that culture. If you have a question, if you just flat out don't know, please ask. Like, I'm happy to answer questions about this kind of stuff, about food, about Mexican culture, Day of the Dead, tortillas, tres leches, all this stuff. I am. If you ask me a question either here or on the Facebook page and say like, hey, what does this mean? How do you do this? Why is this done this way? If you genuinely don't know and you're curious, I'm happy to answer that. Now, a lot of other people are probably happy to just answer those kinds of questions and give you that information. Now, whenever you're putting something together and you have a character or you have a situation in a story or a movie or it's something else, and the culture is not your own, that honestly is the best thing you can do. Just ask, look it up. Now, here's the part where some people might disagree with me, but I think this is honestly the best thing that you can do. If you don't get it 100% right, like I'm sure that somebody on the staff who was putting together the dishes for this stuff probably went to a restaurant that was advertised as Mexican, but probably was serving Tex-Mex food, because that taco was honestly a lot closer to Tex-Mex than it was to Mexican food. Like when I think Mexican tacos, I think tacos al pastor. I think a lot of other things like that. That's closer to Tex-Mex than anything else. But if you make a legitimate good faith effort, if you make a legitimate good faith effort to get things right, and you've done the work, and you're not going to get it 100%. Like that's the thing that may be difficult to accept, and it's the thing that I think, like I think, at least for myself, I'm being very generous to this because I know there was a lot of hatred towards the show, and I do feel a little bit of it. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things in this episode that were just, but at least on the chefs, on the baker's part, they were legitimately trying to work with what they knew at the time and being given this information. So what I would say is, if you're working with something that's not your culture, do the best you can to get the information from the source and ask questions. Now, some of those questions might be awkward. They might be difficult. They might be embarrassing to ask, that I don't know this. I would rather deal with a work that tried to do things correctly than a work that just tried to not put the effort in. I would rather deal with something that gets the details wrong, gets the flavor wrong, so to speak. I mean, it's kind of a weird word to use, especially when we watch that video right now. But I would rather work, or I would rather be exposed to a work that tries to take my culture, my background, and tries to legitimately portray it as, you know, as authentically as possible, and maybe stumbles here and there, because you are that's the thing that may be hard for a lot of people to hear. Like, you're not going to get it 100% right, but you can usually tell when somebody has at least tried to make the effort. You know, if I tried to write, for example, a character who is black, and then being black is part of their story, I would definitely seek out people who can tell me what these situations are like, what the culture is like, what kind of response would be appropriate. I'm not going to go and just kind of base it on things that I've seen in popular culture, because popular culture is just a very shallow version of a lot of different things. If you're Mexican, if you're black, if you're Asian, you know, and if you want to see an example of that particular thing, go look up, like, I'm serious, go look up on YouTube any video talking about Ben Shapiro's novel, where the dialogue of the black characters is basically showing that Ben Shapiro's idea of what black people talk like is based entirely on 1970s blaxploitation films. I am not kidding about that, by the way. When it comes to writing, you know, the adage is write what you know. But, you know, if I want to write a story about people working in space, I mean, I could look up, you know, stories about astronauts, but I've never been up there. You know, I have to go off of secondhand, third hand sometimes. So when it comes to talking about other cultures and about presenting them and about, you know, what it's like to be in places that I've never been before, I would simply say, do a legitimate effort to portray them as accurately as possible. You can't ask for something else. Now, you also have to walk a fine line. Like, you don't want to write a story about a culture or about a group that you're not a part of if being part of that group is really the thing that you need in order to portray that story accurately. I would never, for example, like I mentioned, if you're going to write a character who's black and being black is part of their story, I would never make that the main part of a story. Like, I would never expect or think that I could write a story from a black point of view primarily. I just don't know what that's like. And I'm definitely going to get way more things wrong than I'm going to get right. I can write a character who is, you know, maybe Japanese, or who maybe grew up in New York City or something like that, and I can throw in like things here or there that maybe hopefully make them seem a little bit more authentic, but I will never ever think that I can make that the center of a story. You know, if I have a character who is black, for example, I don't think for a second that I could accurately depict what it's like to be black, you know, especially if it's a character in a modern setting. You know, I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to be black in America in 2023. I could read all the statistics, all the articles. I could know all the numbers. I could go back and read everything about the Harlem Renaissance and, you know, the Civil Rights Movement and everything that happened between then and now. And I mean, I'll have an understanding of it, but it'll be purely academic. I don't think for a second that I could write a black character with the experience of being black. That's not possible. Likewise, if you're not Mexican, I wouldn't expect you to write a Mexican character where being Mexican is one of the primary things that character is going through. So I guess at the end of the day, if you're going to present a culture, if you're going to present a character, and you're not a part of that group, yes, do your research, portray it as best you can. But if you're not a member of that group, please don't think that you can actually portray that group front and center as a central part of your story, because you can't. You really can't. So to summarize, write what you know. Obviously, if you're watching this, you probably have a breadth of experience that most people don't have. Use that. But if you're going to write something about, a job or a group that you're not a part of, do the research, ask questions, seek out people who can answer those questions and are comfortable with answering your questions. At the same time, please don't think that you can place these groups front and center in a story and get it right. You probably won't. And don't try to capitalize on them either. It's not your life. It's not something that you should be selling. So I hope this was funny. I mean, we went from cakes to talking about racial sensitivity, but I hope this lesson was useful for you. So bottom line, at least try. If you're going to include something that is not of you, please try. Most of us, I would think, I'm speaking mostly for myself here, we appreciate the effort. Like, we appreciate people trying to actually put the time in. At the same time, if you're trying to be phony with it or trying to use it for a punchline, you will get called out on that as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later.